It started with the wrong cup, the wrong hand, and a truth I wasn't ready to taste. The floral mug wasn't mine, the lipstick wasn't her usual shade, and the tea inside had already gone cold, like something decided hours before I woke up. Where are you watching from, and how old are you? Tell me down in the comments and tag at Cheating Tales Real Stories. Now let me introduce myself before we crack this thing wide open. I'm Mark Benson, 58, Senior Claims Examiner at Bayline Insurance in Tampa, Florida. Same brick house on Waverly Lane for 20+ years, same stretch of humid Gulf air clinging to the screen porch every summer dawn. Married to Teresa, blonde, reserved, punctual enough to set her wristwatch by the train whistle downtown. She used to shelve books at Hillsborough High, but after our youngest shipped off to Colorado State, she needed flexibility and switched to remote data entry. 3 mornings from now, June 10th, my pension matures, $1.9 million in deferred stock and cash balance. I circled the date and read on the wall calendar. Teresa called it obsessive. I called it survival. Lately she's been circling something too, my habits, my routes, my blind spots. Friday, June 7th, 7:42 a.m. Outside 79 degrees Fahrenheit, 68% humidity, barometer dropping like a guilty heartbeat. Inside, the smell of burnt toast and a hush thick enough to suffocate. Teresa stood behind me, robe cinched tight, eyes scanning the countertop as if expecting fingerprints to appear. She said, "You're up early?" I replied, "Couldn't sleep. Big weekend." She said, "Nervous?" I answered, "Focused." Her voice vibrated, not fear, calculation. I pocketed that tone like evidence and headed to the garage. 8:20 a.m. My silver Accord groaned to life. The AC fan ticked like a metronome I'd meant to fix for 2 years. At the last red light before the office, a gray Audi S5 rolled up opposite. Same plate I'd seen tailing me twice in 48 hours. I memorized the numbers, whispered them into my phone's recorder, and drove on. 9:03 a.m. ID badge beep, workstation login, one unread email flagged urgent internal, staff realignment from Amanda Rhodes, VP of HR. Meeting invite, 2 p.m. No agenda. After 33 years of sniffing out padded medical invoices, I knew a velvet-gloved firing squad when I saw one. I printed the email, photographed the metadata with a pocket Nikon I keep for dodgy claims, and slid the printout into a folder already thick with secrets. Lunch break, sky like molten tin, cicadas screaming. I dialed Teresa. Voicemail. 10 minutes later she texted, "Sorry, in the shower." "You okay?" Middle of a remote work day, midday shower. Noted. 1:56 p.m. 9th floor conference room smelled of lemon polish and sweat. Amanda sat rigid, a legal pad shielding her like a chest plate. Director Carl Keene, same man who handed me cigars every Christmas, stood by the window, knuckles white around a disposable coffee cup. Amanda said, "Mark, we value your years of service, but due to structural changes, your position is being sunset." I asked, "Effective when?" Carl said, "Today, end of business." She slid a folder across the table. 3 months' pay for my silence, pension evaporated by a clause I'd never agreed to. I said, "I see." No flinch, no flush. Because I'd spent 3 years building my own case file, duplicate claim IDs, ghost beneficiaries, unexplained transfers to Barbados, Belize, Cyprus, names threaded through every ledger like rotten good timber. They thought they cut me off. They actually set me loose. 3:47 p.m. I left with one folder. Nothing else. Security guard tried to say good luck. Words died in his throat when he saw my eyes. The sun slid behind storm clouds by the time I pulled into Waverly Lane. Teresa's gray Corolla was gone. A neighbor's dog barked, then fell silent, as if bribed. Inside, the house smelled like her vanilla candles, cover scent. I checked our router logs, a video conference at 2:03 p.m. Minutes after my execution, labeled Bayline VPN. So much for remote data entry. She came home 5:12 p.m. Wet hair, new earrings, no shopping bags. Showered again by 5:15. 32 minutes under hot water while I sat in the hallway, counting every drop hitting the tile. Her phone buzzed twice. When the bathroom door finally opened, steam billowed out, and she walked past me without a word, smiling at some private joke. She never smiles like that for me. I used our shared tablet, old enough to bypass her new passcodes, and ran a recovery scan on deleted messages. Up popped Fenton. He'll be out soon. Everything's moving forward. This weekend, finally? Can't believe how easy it was. My pulse didn't race, it calibrated. Teresa wasn't just aware of the corporate ambush, she had choreographed it, right down to distracting me with that lipstick-stained floral mug while someone else parked an Audi on my tail. They were inside the house, inside the company, inside my final 3 days. I pulled the Nikon from my pocket, photographed every message, then zoomed on a thumbnail photo of Fenton, a man in a charcoal suit, smirk confident enough to punch. Facial rec software in my head flipped through memory. Edward Fenton, Bayline's outside counsel on high-risk terminations, rumor of a side deal with HR for every pension they could snatch before vesting. Clock check, 6:22 p.m. 71 hours until my pension's legal vesting date, minus the job they just severed. I opened the garage, retrieved a locked briefcase labeled fishing gear, and sorted the exhibits, forged signatures, offshore wire trails, invoice discrepancies. But now the motive was bigger than corporate greed. It was marital betrayal. I made a timeline on the whiteboard above my workbench. June 7th, 7:42 a.m. Wrong cup, lipstick clue. 9:03 a.m. HR email. 1:56 p.m. Termination. 5:15 p.m. 32-minute shower, suspicious texts. Unknown, Audi tail surveillance. At the bottom I wrote 72-hour counterstrike, and underlined it twice. I brewed black coffee, acidic, necessary, and opened a burner laptop. Cloud storage keys, anonymous whistleblower portal credentials, local news station tips line, all ready. But revenge only works if the knife cuts clean. I needed proof Teresa knew why I'd been fired. I needed audio. So I planted a micro-recorder under the slat of her nightstand drawer, battery good for 96 hours. Then I slipped a GPS tag under her Corolla's rear bumper, magnetic, silent. Time, 11:04 p.m. Teresa asleep, chest rising slow, a faint perfume of lavender and deceit. I stood in the doorway and realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not heartbreak. Just a cold, bright clarity like stepping into winter air. They stole my retirement with a smile and a phone call. Now I had 3 days to tear their plan apart, piece by piece. Saturday, June 8th. 6:38 a.m. 47 hours 19 minutes 38 seconds to payday. Someone else's fingerprints still shimmered on the steering wheel of her Corolla. Not mine. Not hers. I sat on the back porch, coffee bitter, air damp with Gulf salt. The house creaked like it knew something. Teresa hadn't spoken to me since last night, unless you count the hum she made while folding laundry she never wore. 7:14 a.m. She walked out wearing her old gray leggings, no gym bag, no water bottle. I said, "Get those cherry tomatoes I like." She said, "If they have them." Her tone was maple syrup poured over a knife. Corolla pulled away. GPS tracker pinged green beneath the rear bumper. 7:28. I cut through the neighbor's yard, knocked twice on Walter's garage. He used to be a sheriff back in Corpus Christi. Now he gardens, and keeps a shock cartridge in the glove box just in case. His dark blue Silverado rumbled quietly. We kept 3 cars back as she headed north up Manatee Drive. Cicadas buzzed like power lines. 7:54. 46 hours 04 minutes 12 seconds. She bypassed the farmer's market without even glancing. Turned left on Laurel Street, into the underground lot beneath Harborview Plaza, a tower of tinted glass and glossy lies. Law firms. Medical billing. Not a tomato in sight. Walter said she lied. I replied, stay with her. 8 o'clock. I moved in on foot. The parking garage reeked of wet concrete and ozone. Fluorescent lights blinked like guilty eyes. I spotted her, seated in a white leather chair in the lobby, beside Edward Fenton. He said, "He won't have standing after Monday." She said, "Already signed?" "Don't worry." Then they both laughed. Too loud. Too long. Like people who'd rehearsed feeling nothing. I dropped a recorder beneath the frame of Suite 204. No name on the door. Just shadows behind frosted glass. Click. 45 hours 52 minutes 19 seconds. 8:07. Walter's voice crackled in my earpiece. Tail, 2 o'clock. Black Charger. Same plate from yesterday. That car had followed me on Thursday. They weren't just watching me. They were circling the whole plan. 9:40. Home again. Teresa returned at 11:03 carrying a paper bag, 2 tomatoes and a jar of pickles. Props for her alibi. I said thanks. She said, "Anything for my gardener?" Her smile was painted porcelain. 12:02 p.m. She clipped basil in the garden while I sat in the garage with headphones on, editing the recording. I amplified her words. Already signed. Cut background noise. Saved it as knife 01. Wave. Now I knew she'd signed off on my termination. She didn't just know. She helped. 2:25 p.m. 43 hours 34 minutes 7 seconds. I drove to Clearwater, to my eldest son David. He said, "You look tired." I replied, "Pre-retirement jitters." He lit a clove cigarette and handed me the safe key. I placed a flash drive inside, backups, passwords, audio files. If something happened to me, it would speak in my place. 5:11. I returned. Teresa watched a true crime show, laughing at the killer's punchline like it was a memory. GPS logs showed her car hadn't moved since 11:05. One meeting today. But it was enough. 6:47. I grilled salmon, skin crisped in paprika. She said, "Perfect crust." I replied, 2 days to retirement? Might as well celebrate. She raised her glass. She said, "To new beginnings?" Her eyes sparkled. Not with relief. With anticipation. 11:09. She placed her phone on the charger. Turned away. The screen dimmed, but I caught the Bluetooth key. Pulled the SIM, cloned it, extracted temp logs. Outbound text at 10:12 p.m. To contact Savage, tell him the audit's clean. He'll fold by Monday. Audit meant Bayline's internal kill switch. Savage was Kyle Savage, a compliance auditor I once chewed out for fudging numbers. 3:13 a.m. 35 hours 46 minutes 33 seconds. She slept soundly. Lavender on her skin. Mouth slightly open. I stood over her, scrolling through her camera roll. Clearwater Beach. Sunset. Champagne. 3 weeks ago. She wore a white hotel robe, grinning like she just won. But it wasn't her smile that froze me. It was the reflection behind her. Carl Keene. My director. The man who said my role was sunsetting. Holding a champagne flute and a Harborview keycard. Not rage. Not grief. Just clarity. They weren't separate betrayals. They were one operation. Fenton, Keene, Teresa. The corporate lawyer, the boss, the wife. 3 points of a triangle, cutting clean through my life. I didn't need more evidence. I needed to strike. 35 hours 02 minutes 11 seconds until Sunday. Until it ends. And what I uncovered after that didn't just turn a scandal into a reckoning. It awakened something far worse than I'd ever imagined. Not even my worst nightmares had prepared me for it. She came home 5:12 p.m. Wet hair, new earrings, no shopping bags. Showered again by 5:15. 32 minutes under hot water while I sat in the hallway, counting every drop hitting the tile. Her phone buzzed twice. When the bathroom door finally opened, steam billowed out, and she walked past me without a word, smiling at some private joke. She never smiles like that for me. I used our shared tablet, old enough to bypass her new passcodes, and ran a recovery scan on deleted messages. Up popped Fenton. He'll be out soon. Everything's moving forward. This weekend, finally? Can't believe how easy it was. My pulse didn't race, it calibrated. Teresa wasn't just aware of the corporate ambush, she had choreographed it, right down to distracting me with that lipstick-stained floral mug while someone else parked an Audi on my tail. They were inside the house, inside the company, inside my final 3 days. I pulled the Nikon from my pocket, photographed every message, then zoomed on a thumbnail photo of Fenton, a man in a charcoal suit, smirk confident enough to punch. Facial rec software in my head flipped through memory. Edward Fenton, Bayline's outside counsel on high-risk terminations, rumor of a side deal with HR for every pension they could snatch before vesting. Clock check, 6:22 p.m. 71 hours until my pension's legal vesting date, minus the job they just severed. I opened the garage, retrieved a locked briefcase labeled fishing gear, and sorted the exhibits: forged signatures, offshore wire trails, invoice discrepancies. But now the motive was bigger than corporate greed. It was marital betrayal. I made a timeline on the whiteboard above my workbench. June 7th, 7:42 a.m. Wrong cup, lipstick clue. 9:03 a.m. HR email. 1:56 p.m. Termination. 5:15 p.m. 32-minute shower, suspicious texts. Unknown, Audi tail surveillance. At the bottom I wrote 72-hour counterstrike, and underlined it twice. I brewed black coffee, acidic, necessary, and opened a burner laptop. Cloud storage keys, anonymous whistleblower portal credentials, local news station tips line, all ready. But revenge only works if the knife cuts clean. I needed proof Teresa knew why I'd been fired. I needed audio. So I planted a micro-recorder under the slat of her nightstand drawer, battery good for 96 hours. Then I slipped a GPS tag under her Corolla's rear bumper, magnetic, silent. Time, 11:04 p.m. Teresa asleep, chest rising slow, a faint perfume of lavender and deceit. I stood in the doorway and realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not heartbreak. Just a cold, bright clarity like stepping into winter air. They stole my retirement with a smile and a phone call. Now I had 3 days to tear their plan apart, piece by piece. Sunday, June 9th. 7:11 a.m. 23 hours 49 minutes 0 seconds to payday. That morning, I found my own face inside a Target. A printed photo from my garage camera was pinned beside the trash bins, a marker bullet drawn between the eyes. Where are you watching from, and how old are you? Type it in the comments. Now listen, how everything unraveled in one night. The sky faded from steel to dust. Teresa slept like peace could be ordered by mail. I was already in the garage, standing over a whiteboard taped to the workbench. At the top, I wrote in red confirm motive. 6 branches fanned out: HR emails, GPS logs, meeting transcripts, cloud backups, photo metadata, and audio timecodes. All arrows now pointed in the same direction. This wasn't chaos. It was a hit job. 7:58. I called my daughter, Natalie. She answered, "Everything okay, Dad?" I said, "Just wanted to hear your voice." She asked, "You sound weird?" I said, "Long week." But before hanging up, she paused. That silence challenged me. Protect the kids. 8:41. Teresa left. For a walk. Wearing ballet flats and mascara. No water bottle. No fitness tracker. 1 minute later, I activated the GPS. She didn't head west toward the bay like usual. She turned south. At Gulf Street, the signal cut off. A known dead zone. I'd tested it. No phone reception. 9:07. I opened her Corolla's glove box with an old flathead screwdriver. The grip felt sticky with old grease. Inside, mints, a shopping list, and a Walgreens receipt from Friday, men's vitamins, size L boxer briefs, a prepaid Visa card. Not my size. Not my card. The rear panel of the glove box felt thicker than usual. Probably a hidden compartment. 9:19. Teresa returned, hair damp at the roots, no shopping bags, no excuses. She kissed my cheek like I was a roommate. No words, her silence rehearsed. 11:14 a.m. 20 hours 46 minutes 14 seconds. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A man's voice rasped, "If you care about your kids, drop it." Then silence. I saved the recording as threat_01. Wave. Played it 5 times. In the background, a commercial fridge hummed from the Amber Room Motel. 11:19. I drove to Walter's place. He asked, "You armed?" I said, "Not yet." He handed me a cold can of Sprite and opened a drawer with deliberate calm. Inside, a registered Smith & Wesson. "38, he said, "it's mine. If you're not ready to shoot, don't touch it." I replied, "I hope it stays that way." I locked it in my Accord's armrest safe. 12:06 p.m. At the red light outside Publix, I spotted Teresa crossing with a smoothie tray. Only one drink. We always order 2. A small mistake. But fatal. She wasn't thinking of me. 2:03 p.m. 17 hours 57 minutes 29 seconds. I uploaded the HR firing audio to a private cloud under the name not_resignation. Wave. Then I trimmed and saved a parking garage video, Teresa hugging Fenton. Not a handshake. Both arms. Chin on his shoulder. Zoomed 180%. Her lips clearly say, "Soon." I saved it as hug proof. Movie. 3:26. Natalie called me back. She said, "Dad, you're scaring me?" I said, "Whatever your mother says tomorrow, call me first." Long pause. Then okay. The first crack. 6:09 dinner. Teresa made steak medium rare. Mine's always well done. No plates. Just napkins. Like a staged picnic. She said, "Tomorrow's big?" I replied, "It is." She raised her glass. "You've always been so stable. It made things easier." I asked, "Easier for what?" She said, "Just easier." 9:42 p.m. 10 hours 18 minutes 14 seconds. Simlog showed a call to Amber Room. Room 118. I drove over. Parked behind a trash truck. Through the curtain slit, I saw a man smoking at the window. Shirtless. Holding a phone. It was Fenton. He turned, light caught the lens of my car. I ducked behind the hood. 3 heartbeats. Silence. He walked back inside. 10:03, back home. Teresa was in bed. Her GPS tracker blinked off, someone had removed it. The Nikon camera was missing from the closet. I stepped outside. Under the bench cushion on the porch, I found the camera, SD card gone. They'd erased the photo. The one showing Carl Keene behind Teresa at Clearwater Beach. My anchor evidence. Gone. 11:19 p.m. 9 hours 41 minutes 17 seconds. This was no longer about the money. It was about control. Erasing proof isn't panic, it's an invitation to slip. But I'd made a career out of spotting slips. So I made my next move. I powered up the old laminator, printed a fake letter from SunTrust Bank asking Teresa to verify beneficiary changes. I'd slip it into her mail tomorrow. I didn't need her words. I needed her fingerprints. Fresh ones. Then, at 3:04 a.m., while drafting my last board note in the garage, the laptop in the living room suddenly flickered on. A streaming window opened. I stepped closer. It showed a live feed, from my own garage. Someone was watching, from inside my house. But the stream wasn't sent to Fenton. The account name said, Linda Benson, my sister's name. Dead 6 years. Which meant someone had been playing this game far longer than I ever knew. Sunday, June 9th. 11:28 p.m. 8 hours 31 minutes 7 seconds to transfer. They made a move tonight that was supposed to erase me, not just from Bayline's books, but from every registry, every trace. Round Pushpin, where are you watching from, and how old are you? Let me show you what betrayal looks like. when it wears a wedding ring. The heat outside clung like old glue. The scent of scorched grass floated in from the side yard, and somewhere on the street, cicadas were screaming like something was about to break. In the garage, I checked the whiteboard, confirm motive. Every thread now pointed to the triangle: Teresa, Fenton, Carl Keene. I was staring at my name next to a red X when the porch camera pinged. A text lit up. Delivery 11:30 p.m. No name. No order. I stepped out front with Walter's .38 tucked behind my belt. The gun was cold, heavy, and silent, like the part of me they hadn't killed yet. There was no delivery. Just wind. Just silence. 11:34. Teresa came down the hall barefoot, said, "Can't sleep?" I replied, "Just needed air." She said, "You're not worried about tomorrow, are you?" I replied, "Should I be?" She shrugged and walked back without a sound. 6 hours 09 minutes 42 seconds to transfer. 1:21 a.m. Her phone unlocked itself on the kitchen charger. Lazy security from someone who thought they already won. I checked her location app. Recent pin: Amber Room Motel, room 118. The timestamp was from earlier tonight, 10:06 p.m. She said she was getting wine. I pulled up security cam footage of the driveway. At 9:58, her car leaves. She returns at 10:42. But the bag in her hand isn't from the wine shop, it's a plastic motel ice bucket. I drove. 4 hours 37 minutes 29 seconds to transfer. 2:04 a.m. The motel lot was dim, sodium lights buzzing like broken circuits. I parked behind a landscaping truck and crossed the lot on foot. Asphalt stuck to the soles of my sneakers. Outside room 118, I crouched low, Nikon in hand. Through the half-cracked curtain, I saw Fenton sitting on the edge of the bed. His shirt was open. A red tie, mine, I think, was looped around Teresa's neck. She was laughing. Then she leaned in and kissed his collarbone. Click. Flash. Fenton snapped his head up. Teresa froze. I ducked left behind a Camry, breath caught in my throat. A door creaked. Footsteps. Getting closer. I slid along the driver's side and crouched behind a trash bin. Fenton stepped into the light, scanning the lot. The red tie now slung over his shoulder like a trophy. He stared straight toward me. Then he turned and spat, muttered something I couldn't hear, and walked back inside. 4 hours 11 minutes 4 seconds to transfer. Back home, I parked 2 streets down and walked the rest. Teresa was already asleep, or pretending. I locked the office door and opened the app linked to David's suitcase. The screen blinked green, GPS beacon active. I'd sewn it under the liner a week ago. Just in case. 3:03 a.m. The phone vibrated. Sender unknown. Message: "We have your son. Stay quiet." Attached photo. David's duffel bag. Slashed open. On a wooden floor I didn't recognize. No voice. Just threat. I activated the emergency ping on the suitcase tracker. The green dot pulsed in real time. Location: Clearwater Storage Facility, Unit B47. David wasn't there. But someone wanted me to think he was. I pulled up live feeds. My garage camera was off. Not disconnected. Disabled. 3 hours 08 minutes 51 seconds to transfer. I called Walter. He said, "Where are you?" I replied, "In the living room." He said, "No, you're not. I'm at your curb. Front lights on. House is dark. And there's a suitcase on your porch." I said, "David's?" He said, "Lock's twisted off, Mark. And it's empty." The porch light flickered. So this was it, not a warning. A stage. And I was standing in the center, alone. 8 hours 31 minutes to transfer. Less than 4 to daylight. And after tonight, I wasn't playing for revenge. I was playing to survive. Monday, June 10th. 4:12 a.m. 3 hours 48 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. I opened the suitcase on my porch and spiders crawled out. Plastic, not real. But a Polaroid lay beneath them, and the handwriting on the back said, "Erase yourself or we'll erase him. Where are you watching from, and how old are you? Tell me below, then watch how fast house keys turn into handcuffs." The kitchen floor smelled like lemon cleaner and copper. I stepped back, hard thudding. The porch light flickered twice. Every creak in the hallway sounded like a countdown. I opened the drawer under the sink, flashlight, wrench, zip ties, backup recorder. The flashlight barrel felt colder than the tap water. No forced entry. Just a hollow stillness. I scanned the hallway camera feed. At 3 hours and 41 minutes, the frames skipped. At 3 hours 41 minutes and 6 seconds, a shadow moved near the laundry door. One frame. One shape. Then gone. But the doormat had shifted an inch. That was real. 3 hours 17 minutes and 19 seconds to the final transfer. I texted Walter, motion breach. Someone inside between 3:39 to 3:42. He replied, "You need backup?" I replied, "Not yet." Then I turned off every light and listened. 4:49 a.m. I brewed black coffee. Took it into the garage, sat beneath the whiteboard. The air smelled like motor oil and burnt plastic, but also sweat. Not mine. I scanned the bench. One wrench missing. Black-handled. 3-inch gap. I shut the light off. Faint print on the vice grip, left-handed. Teresa was right-handed. Fenton? Unknown. 4:51 a.m. A board creaked in the attic. I raised the flashlight. The beam sliced across insulation dust, nothing. Then the garage door's sensor blinked red, manual override triggered. I bolted outside, boots sliding on concrete. Down Waverly Lane, taillights faded, one brake light dead. I memorized the plate lamp, only half lit. 2 hours 44 minutes and 2 seconds to the final transfer. 5:02 a.m. Teresa appeared in a silk robe. She said, "Couldn't sleep?" I replied, "Long night." She said, "You always get nervous before big days." I replied, "Not nervous. Focused." She poured coffee, sat without speaking. Her right hand trembled slightly, not exhaustion. Adrenaline. 5:19 a.m. She stepped away to shower. I opened her laptop. One folder. WF_accounts. Password protected. I typed David's birthday. Then our wedding date. Then, Linda. It opened. 3 spreadsheets. Bayline employee IDs. Offshore routing numbers. Red labeled transfers. Fenton. Carl. Teresa. $860,000 rerouted in 18 months. I copied everything to a flash drive. Ejected clean. 5:31 a.m. Teresa returned in a black dress and heels. She said, "You're not dressed?" I replied, "For what?" She said, "We're still going to the brunch, right?" I said, "I think plans may change." 1 hour 59 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. I drove alone to Clearwater Storage. Unit B47. Signal still green. Inside, a bulb, metal chair, and the missing wrench. Clean. Centered. Like punctuation. No sign of David. I didn't call Walter. I drove to Bayline's downtown office. Parked across the street. 6:31 a.m. Teresa's Corolla arrived. 5 minutes later, Fenton's Audi. I logged into Bayline's internal security stream. Room 9B filled. Amanda. Carl. Legal. Teresa. Fenton. 6:42 a.m. 1 hour 18 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. I hit upload. Every file. 3 destinations: Florida AG's whistleblower portal, a private financial blog, and 2 national newsrooms. Last file: Teresa_Bayline_master. Movie. Then I waited. 7:10 a.m. A text. Threat number 02, we have your son. Play nice. I tapped the SAT tracker sewn into David's carry-on. Pinged his dorm parking lot, same coordinates, last 12 hours. Voice clone threat confirmed. I replied, try again. 7:14 a.m. Walter said, check your front porch. I replied, what is it? He said, just look. I opened the porch cam. A red duffel. David's. Zipper half open. Hoodie. Phone charger. A folded card. You're not the only one who records everything. Blood rushed in my ears. I unzipped the lining. Taped inside, a 4x6 glossy. Teresa and Linda. Smiling. Digital kiosk behind them, June 3, 2025, 11:22 a.m. Linda's hand held a Tampa Tribune. Ink so fresh I swore I could still smell the newsprint. And in her other hand, my missing Nikon. Finger on the shutter. Then the porch light died. And 3 slow knocks echoed from the back door. Monday, June 10th. 7:17 a.m. 43 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. 3 slow knocks. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just patient. As if the person on the other side already knew the answer. I didn't open the door. I slid the 38 from the vent box and took position behind the pantry door. The tile under my feet felt ice cold. My own breathing was louder than the wind chimes outside. No second knock. Then footsteps, retreating. Whoever it was didn't wait. But they left something behind. 7:19 a.m. I opened the back door. A thermos sat on the step. No note. No markings. I brought it inside wearing gloves. Unscrewed the lid. Still warm. Inside, floating in black coffee, my wife's wedding ring. The inscription. MNT 1992. Scratched out with a file. And a piece of card, soggy at the edges, that said, you have 40 minutes. Make yourself disappear. 7:22 a.m. 38 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. I made the call to Walter. He said, what's the code? I replied, Eagles awake. He said, you're sure? I said, if I'm wrong, we both go down. He said, then we finish it. He would deliver everything to the field office in Tampa, the financials, the flash drives, the signed deposition I wrote last year when I first suspected the pension laundering. I had kept that part from you, dear listener. Until now. 7:29 a.m. 31 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. I wiped my fingerprints from the duffel and placed it back on the porch. I left the front door cracked open. Teresa returned at 7:33 a.m. She walked in holding a gift bag and wearing a smile so wide it looked stapled on. She said, morning again? I replied, forgot your bag. She said, oh, thanks. You're always so helpful. I nodded and watched her walk into the bedroom. The thermos sat in plain view on the counter. She didn't ask? 7:37 a.m. I stepped onto the patio, sat on the rusted lounge chair. The metal dug into my back. Across the fence, the neighbor's sprinkler sputtered 3 beats, then hiss, then repeat. A mocking rhythm. Natalie called. She said, Dad, I saw something weird. I replied, what? She said on Reddit. A leak about Bayline. It mentions a Mark Benson. I replied, it's going to get louder. She said, Mom's in it too? I replied, sweetheart. She said, I knew it. Then silence. The kind that peels the skin off your calm. 7:41 a.m. 19 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. Walter texted, it's done. Confirmed receipt. They're in motion. I exhaled through my nose. But my hand trembled when I reached for the screwdriver under the lawn chair. The backup flash drive was taped inside the handle. I buried it in the soil beneath the fire pit. Just in case. 7:45 a.m. Teresa walked out with her suitcase. She said, I'll be back around lunch. I replied, take your time. She said, everything okay? I said, just a long morning. She kissed my cheek, and for half a second I thought I saw something. Guilt? Or fear? No. Just calculation. 7:48 a.m. 12 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. The house was still. Too still. I checked David's old room. Nothing moved. But in the drawer, beneath a stack of receipts and wrappers, I found my missing garage USB stick. Reinserted into a dummy iPod. It had been copied. That meant someone had full access to the audio and camera feeds. And they'd had it for days. 7:52 a.m. My email chimed. Subject line: You've started a war. Attachment: photo of Natalie exiting her dorm, taken that morning. Angle from across the street. I didn't panic. I printed the photo, laminated it, and pinned it to the inside of my garage locker, right above a single line. If they touch her, everything burns. 7:55 a.m. 5 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. The lights in the hallway dimmed for half a second. Then came a thud from the attic. One. Then another. I grabbed the flashlight again. Took the steps up 2 at a time. Opened the panel door. Nothing. But dust had been disturbed. Fresh footprints led to the vent. Inside the vent, a small cloth bundle. I pulled it out. Inside, another 4x6 photo. Linda. Teresa. And someone else. Blurry. Masked. Holding a sign. Today's date. Behind them, the interior of my bank's server room. Real. Verifiable. The countdown reached 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Then the power went out. In the dark, I heard the click of my garage keypad being entered, 4 digits. The right 4. And a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. He said, "Mark, long time. Let's finish this like we started." That's when I remembered. Only 3 people ever knew that code. One was dead. The other was my wife. Monday, June 10th. 7:57 a.m. 3 minutes and 0 seconds to the final transfer. The keypad stopped beeping, the garage door groaned, and that familiar voice slid through the dark like a blade. He said, "Mark, still fixing everything yourself?" I didn't answer. I was already moving, left hand on the pantry jamb, right hand closing around the 38's cold grip. My feet glided across vinyl, silent, measured. I reached the breaker panel by memory, flipped the main switch. Light spilled back into the kitchen, humming and angry. Fenton stood in the doorway, gray tech jacket zipped to the throat, black nitro gloves shining. Sweat beaded on his temple despite the AC. He said, "We just want the files." I replied, "You already cloned them." He said, "Not the originals?" I said, "The originals are public now, look at your phone." He said, "Then you just signed your death warrant." 7:58 a.m. 2 minutes and 0 seconds. We locked eyes. Neither flinched. My chest felt stone still, but I could hear the blood rushing in my ears like surf. Then another voice slipped in behind him, softer, brittle. She said, "Don't hurt him." Teresa, mascara smeared, motel yellow blouse wrinkled, blouse buttons misaligned. No smile left. She moved 1 step forward, enough to catch the kitchen light. She said, "He won't shoot you, Mark? He's bluffing." I didn't speak. I let silence weigh her words. She said, "You never had it in you?" I reached behind the island, pulled the legal envelope, and tossed it between us. Papers fanned across tile, custody petition, money laundering flowchart, credit transfers from David's 529 to her private card. She knelt. Fingers trembled as she read the headline, Petitioner, Mark A. Benson vs. Respondent, Teresa L. Benson. Page stamped 6:55 a.m. this morning. Fenton's jaw clenched. He drew a matte black Glock from his waistband. He said, "One more step, I end this." I said, "Endings are all I write." His trigger finger tightened. I watched the tendon jump. I angled my barrel low and fired. Muzzle flash bloomed, round shattering tile 2 inches from his boot. He flinched, curse half-formed. Sirens answered, 6 notes rising, overlapping, Doppler warping down Waverly Lane. Fenton bolted through the garage, door yawning upward. Outside, Walter's Silverado idled in the neighbor's drive, tailgate down. A red laser dot swam across Fenton's chest. U.S. Marshal stepped from azalea hedges, trip switch whispers of nylon holsters. he said, on your knees, now? 8 a.m. 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Transfer complete. Inside, Teresa still kneeled, shoulders quaking. I ejected the spent casing, the metallic ping echoing. I said, you used me? She said, it wasn't always a lie. I replied, but it finished as one. She looked up, lips parted, apology dying before birth. I said, save it for court. 8:14 a.m. Agents cleared the house, one in the attic, one in the crawlspace. They bagged the thermos, the Polaroids, the vent bundle, took DNA swabs from the coffee ring. Teresa sat cuffed at the dining table, staring at the gouge my bullet left, as if numbers might still add up differently. 8:27 a.m. Walter leaned on the porch rail, thumb hooked in his badge wallet, eyes scanning the street. He said, clean shot? I replied, missed on purpose. He said, I know. That's why it worked. 8:42 a.m. Natalie arrived. No one called her, but news pushes fast through dorm hallways when helicopters orbit your childhood home. She stepped past her mother without pause, blue backpack thumping against her leg. She buried her face in my shoulder. She said, is it over? I said, it is for us. Not for them. 9:05 a.m. Fenton rode away in a black Suburban, wrists zip-tied, head low. The marshals found a burner laptop in his trunk, live shell access to a Bayline payment queue. Transfer aborted at 7:59 and 17 seconds a.m. Flagged. Suspected fraud. One line of code can turn fortune into evidence. 9:41 a.m. Teresa signed her Miranda waiver. She said, he said you'd fold? I replied, you don't know me at all. 10:13 a.m. The Florida AG held a press conference. Coordinated embezzlement ring dismantled. Whistleblower Benson instrumental. Cameras flashed. My likeness washed across live feeds. I spoke one sentence. I just kept the receipts. 11:56 a.m. I stood in the garden. June's sun baked rosemary, the scent thick like memory. Bayline's headquarters appeared on every channel. Executives let out in cuffs, Carl Keene hiding behind tinted car windows, Amanda Rhodes clutching a lawyer's arm. Share price halted. Pension fund unfrozen, retroactive vesting order signed by the court. 1:08 p.m. David video called, campus quad bright behind him. He said, Mom? I answered, remanded. He said, you okay? I said finally. 5:44 p.m. Sunset bled orange over Tampa Bay. Natalie and I sat on the porch swing. Wood creaked, cicadas tuned up. She said, what now? I replied, quiet mornings, real tomatoes, maybe fishing. She said, without Mom? I said, healing doesn't need her permission. 7:12 p.m. Walter drove by, tapped 2 fingers to his brow, disappeared into dusk. Sirens were gone, press vans chasing fresher blood. House lights glowed steady. Thermostat read 74 degrees Fahrenheit. For the first time in months, no timers blinked. They tried to erase me, pension, name, family. Instead, I rewrote the ending. Subscribe if you want more stories about real men who don't scream. They act. Coldly. To the end.